want to bring in Diana Konate. She's the Deputy Executive Director of Policy and Advocacy for African Communities Together. Diana, thank you so much for being with us. I want to start by saying that I'm sure this story and what is happening to the Ethiopian community here in the US is dear to your heart because you are an African immigrant yourself. You're originally from Cote d'Ivoire. That is a country that has also experienced civil war as well. So I'm sure you have a lot of empathy for what Ethiopians in the United States might be facing as it pertains to going back or being sent back to Ethiopia. Jennifer Hansler, our reporter from the State Department, was just talking about the fact that, yes, even though there was this peace agreement, the Pretoria Agreement in 2022, that doesn't necessarily mean that Ethiopia is now perfectly safe. There was this, 2-year civil war that killed 500,000 people. We covered it extensively on this show, and there are still pockets of violence. Even the State Department says that there are many parts of Ethiopia that are not safe right now. So just explain to us, for people who might end up being deported, I understand it's about 5,000 Ethiopians who are on TPS, and now that's looking likely to end. What are they being sent back to?
I mean, as was described, the country is just not safe. They're being sent back to a country where there is still ongoing armed conflict in many regions, a country that the State Department has level 4 travel advisories for those regions due to the armed conflict. There are environmental conditions going on in other parts of the region. I mean, it's just a really dire situation that these folks would be going back to. And Ethiopia, unfortunately, isn't the only country. We have several lawsuits challenging the administration's termination of TPS for countries that, similar to Ethiopia, also have current devastating conditions on the ground. That includes Somalia, South Sudan. Those countries are also on level 4 travel advisories from State Department. The State Department is saying that people should not return to those countries for any, under any circumstances, for any reason. And yet, the administration has terminated TPS, saying that those countries are safe for people to return.
Diana, in the Ethiopia case specifically, Judge Murphy, who we should note is a Biden appointee, rejected your due process and authority arguments and lifted the stay. Your remaining claim for this termination now is driven by racial animus. That is a high bar to prove. What evidence do you have of that? And are you prepared to make that case, if need be, alone?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the actions that the administration has taken, statements that people within the administrations have made, we think that we can show that a lot of the policies that the administration is taking, including termination of TPS for Ethiopia and other countries, is based on racial animus and not on what the law requires, which is a review of country conditions and a decision based on those country conditions.
When it comes to what a lot of these Ethiopian immigrants here in the US are experiencing right now as they risk deportation, because it's important to note that a lot of them didn't just sort of come into the country as a result of the Ethiopian war. They were already here. So essentially, President Biden decided to grant TPS status to Ethiopians who are already here, many of them on different types of visas, here for a number of reasons, and said, while this war is going on, you are allowed to stay in the United States. You are protected from deportation. That means that a lot of them have actually been here for many years. Some have family members here. I'm certainly worried about the separation of families if some of these people are sent back to Ethiopia at this point in time. Just walk us through what are the ramifications for a lot of these migrants who are here, especially given that many of them have been here for so long. And I imagine that a number of them are going to try to see if they can apply for other sort of immigrant status in this country in order not to be deported.
Yeah, I mean, we're already getting calls from people. People are really scared about, what's next. We've been trying to prepare people and, encouraging people, urging them to get in touch with licensed immigration attorneys to figure out what options they do have available to them. Once TPS ends, people do not automatically become undocumented. They revert back to whatever status they had prior to TPS. So, people need to really be having conversations with immigration attorneys to figure out what's next in their particular cases. But people are very afraid. People have lost their ability to work. So that means that people can no longer take care of their families. Some households, the TPS holder was the only person who was working and taking care of the children. Folks are concerned, especially those who have US-born children, are concerned about what happens to their children if they are to be detained and potentially deported. People have reached out about, homes that they own here in the US, businesses that they own, what happens to all of that should they be detained, and what happens to all of that now that as you've mentioned, a lot of them having lived here for years have built their lives up here, and now what happens?
All right, Diana Konate, thank you so much for being with us and breaking down this story for us. We appreciate it.